The cold was a living thing, a biting, relentless entity that had sunk its teeth into me hours ago and hadn't let go. My breath plumed out in ragged, icy clouds, each one a testament to the fact I was still breathing, still moving, still utterly, irretrievably lost. Just a short run, I'd told myself. A quick check of the traps before the real cold front hit. Now, the real cold front was the real cold front, and it had swallowed the world whole. Snow fell with a purpose, not gently, but in a thick, relentless curtain that blurred the lines between sky and earth, between path and precipice. My flashlight, a once reliable beam that had cut through countless nights, was now a pale, dying eye, casting a weak, flickering circle that barely pushed back the encroaching blackness. Every crunch of my boots on the pristine, untouched snow felt deafening in the profound silence of the forest, a silence only broken by the frantic hammering of my own heart. I've always prided myself on my navigation, on an almost innate sense of direction that served me well in every hunting season, every backcountry trek. But this forest, it was different. It wasn't just a matter of losing a trail or misreading a compass. This place felt like it was actively working against me. It started subtly. I'd follow a deer path, clear enough even under the fresh snow, only for it to abruptly end at a thicket of thorns that hadn't been there a minute ago. Or I'd pass a distinctive, lightning-scarred pine, mark it in my mind, then find myself at that exact same pine 10 minutes later, despite having walked in a straight line, or what I thought was a straight line, for what felt like miles. It was like the very ground beneath my feet was shifting, the trees themselves rearranging themselves in a silent, malevolent dance. Then came the sounds. At first, it was just the wind, a low moan through the skeletal branches. But beneath that, or perhaps within it, a new sound began to emerge, a faint, rhythmic tapping. It wasn't the woodpecker's staccato rhythm, nor the creak of ice-laden branches. It was precise, deliberate, like knuckles rapping on an unseen door. And it wasn't coming from one direction. It seemed to echo from all around me, a ghostly percussion section playing some unseen, unheard symphony of dread. I tried to shake it off, to rationalize it as the sound of ice cracking or snow sliding from branches. But then I heard the movement. A heavy, dragging sound, like something massive being pulled through the deep snow just beyond the reach of my failing light. It was always there, always just out of sight, a low, guttural scrape that seemed to follow my every step. I'd stop, hold my breath, strain my ears, and the sound would cease. The moment I started moving again, it would resume, a mocking echo of my own desperate progress. "Hello?" I called out, my voice swallowed by the vast, oppressive silence, sounding thin and reedy even to my own ears. No answer, just the renewed, insidious tapping, closer now, and the relentless drag of that unseen thing. Then came the sounds. At first, it was just the wind, a low moan through the skeletal branches. But beneath that, or perhaps within it, a new sound began to emerge, a faint, rhythmic tapping. It wasn't the woodpecker's staccato rhythm, nor the creak of ice-laden branches. It was precise, deliberate, like knuckles rapping on an unseen door. And it wasn't coming from one direction. It seemed to echo from all around me, a ghostly percussion section playing some unseen, unheard symphony of dread. I tried to shake it off, to rationalize it as the sound of ice cracking or snow sliding from branches. But then I heard the movement, a heavy, dragging sound, like something massive being pulled through the deep snow just beyond the reach of my failing light. It was always there, always just out of sight, a low, guttural scrape that seemed to follow my every step. I'd stop, hold my breath, strain my ears, and the sound would cease. The moment I started moving again, it would resume, a mocking echo of my own desperate progress. "Hello?" I called out, my voice swallowed by the vast, oppressive silence, sounding thin and reedy even to my own ears. No answer, just the renewed, insidious tapping, closer now, and the relentless drag of that unseen thing. I pushed on, my legs burning, my lungs aching with the effort of breathing the frigid air. The snow was knee-deep now, hindering every step. The trees, once familiar silhouettes, seemed to press in closer, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching for me. Every shadow held a flicker of movement. Every rustle of leaves sounded like a whispered threat. I found the stone cairn again. I'd built it myself this morning, a small stack of rocks to mark a particularly tricky turn in the trail. Now, seeing it for the third time, my gut twisted with a sickening lurch. I was trapped. I was caught in a loop, a cruel labyrinth designed by the forest itself. And each loop was pulling me deeper, further from any hope of escape. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, no longer faint, but sharp, distinct, surrounding me. It felt like 100 unseen hands were tapping on the bark of every tree, a chorus of malevolent architects building their prison around me. The dragging sound became more pronounced too, a wet, heavy scrape that raised the hairs on my neck. It wasn't just following me, it felt like it was hurting me. Panic, a cold, insidious dread, began to claw its way up my throat. My carefully cultivated hunter's calm, my survival instincts were being chipped away, replaced by a raw, primal terror. This wasn't just a lost trail. This was an active deception, a malicious game played by an entity I couldn't comprehend. I stumbled, my foot catching on a root that hadn't been there moments before. As I went down, my flashlight slipped from my grasp, its beam hitting the snow and then dying with a final, desperate flicker. Darkness enveloped me, absolute and suffocating. The tapping intensified, a deafening drumbeat all around me. The dragging sound seemed to pass right next to my ear, accompanied by a faint, musky scent, like damp earth, and something else. Something ancient and unholy. I scrambled backward, blindly flailing in the snow, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would burst. I could feel them, or it, or them, just beyond the reach of my senses. Not cold, not warm, but an absence, a void that pressed in from every direction. The forest was no longer just trees and snow. It was a vast, breathing entity, and I was caught in its belly. My fingers brushed against something hard, smooth, and cold. I brought it closer to my face, my eyes struggling to adjust to the inky blackness. It was a piece of bark, a large, flat shard, and, etched into its surface, crudely but undeniably, was a familiar symbol. The crooked line of an old, forgotten trap marker I'd carved into a tree back at the edge of the woods. I'd found it again. Not the marker itself, but a piece of it, somehow ripped free, somehow transported. It was proof, if I needed any more, that this wasn't just disorientation. This was active, deliberate malevolence. The forest was playing with me, taunting me with pieces of my past, showing me how far it had pulled me in, how utterly helpless I was. A low, guttural sigh seemed to sweep through the trees, chilling me to my very core. It wasn't wind, it was something else, something vast and ancient exhaling. The tapping continued, now accompanied by a faint, high-pitched whimper, a sound that seemed to come from inside my own skull. I closed my eyes, pressing my face into the snow, trying to block out the sounds, the cold, the terrible, crushing weight of despair. I had been proud of my instincts, of my mastery over the wilderness. Now, the wilderness had shown me its true face, and it was a predator, far older and infinitely more cunning than anything I had ever hunted. My energy was fading, the cold seeping into my bones, a slow, inevitable surrender. The paths hadn't just led nowhere, they had led here, to the heart of something unspeakable, an invisible labyrinth from which there was no escape. The snow continued to fall, silently, endlessly, burying my tracks, burying my hope, covering everything. And in the deepening darkness, the rhythmic tapping continued, a final, mocking cadence to my slow, cold descent into the embrace of a forest that had claimed me.